Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by. I hope you are enjoying this beautiful day in the wonderful holiday season. So we are getting towards the end of what I had planned for the holidays and for Christmas. So today we're going to be doing peppermint bark. This was a request from several of you, so I'm going to be doing that today. I have one more thing lined up for you. We're going to do a special version of carrot cake jam, and then I'm going to be doing a wrap up. I'm going to show you how I would put things together that we've been working on and gift them. So look for those next two videos. Those will be coming up very shortly. So for today, like I said, we're going to be doing peppermint bark. Now there are a lot of different ways to do this, and everybody kind of has a little bit different take on it. This is how I'm going to do it for you, but if you look on Pinterest or search the internet, you will find that there are a multitude of ways to do it. But we need two types of chocolate. We need a dark chocolate or a milk chocolate, and then you're also going to need white chocolate. You can use chocolate chips, which is what I'm going to be using. I like the Ghirardelli. So I'm using both the Ghirardelli milk chocolate and their classic white chips. I like Ghirardelli because I think it's a good quality chocolate. It's a little bit higher quality, but you can use whatever you want. You can use the candy melts. Wilton makes the candy melts, and I know there are other varieties. I know Ghirardelli also makes the candy melts. So it's up to you. There's also almond bark that you can purchase to melt down and use for making candy. So you use what you can find at your grocery store or what's convenient for you. Like I said, I like the Ghirardelli, and I'm going to use the chips because I always have them on hand. So we're going to need that, and then you're also going to need some peppermint extract, or in my case, I'm going to be using peppermint essential oil. Just make sure if you use essential oil, it's one that is safe for consumption. So I'm going to be using some peppermint essential oil. Your other option is there are oils specifically made for flavoring candy. So like I said, I'm just using what I have on hand, but you use what works for you. I did try to find peppermint extract for the last several weeks at my grocery store, and they've been out. So that was another reason I decided to use my peppermint oil. So you're just going to have to use what is available to you. And then the other thing we're going to need is some delicious candy canes. But we have to break them up. So I just took some candy canes. I'm going to use the red and green ones because I think both colors are so pretty in this. So I'm going to be using that. Just one thing to look out for if this matters to you. Look for something that is naturally flavored. Lots of options out there are not naturally flavored, and the peppermint can kind of taste off. So just be aware of that and look for that. I try to find what is naturally flavored because I think it's a much better flavor, and we want our candy to taste good, right? A couple different ways to make it. Many will just spread out a layer of chocolate, let that sit, and then the layer of the white chocolate, let that sit, and then just break it apart. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but I'm going to kick mine up a notch, and I am going to use these delightful little molds that I found on Amazon, and they are in the shape of snowflakes, and I thought that would be pretty. So these were not expensive. I found them on Amazon, and I will link them for you. I just think it would be nice to have something that is shaped. You can also use cookie cutters. Just put them on a baking sheet. You just have to make sure that they remain flat. So you have to have a surface that's very, very flat. You couldn't use a warped cookie sheet. The first thing we need to do is we need to melt our darker chocolate. And you can, again, you have options with that. You can melt it in the microwave, which I am not a huge fan of. I know there are people who love that option. I'm not a huge fan of it because it can seize up on you very quickly, and once you've seized up chocolate, there's nothing you can do to salvage it. So that has happened to me. I've learned from experience. So I'm going to use the double boiler method, and the way that you do that, you just want about 1 inch of simmering water in a pot. And then you just need a bowl that will fit on top of the pot without touching your water. So make sure it fits together appropriately first and it's not touching your water. You do want your water to be simmering but not boiling. So that's the method that I'm going to use. We're going to start with our milk chocolate first. We're gonna melt it. We're going to pour it into our molds, and then I'm gonna pop it into the freezer for about 5 to 10 minutes. We don't want it to get frozen. We just want it to completely set up. And then we'll melt the white chocolate and put that in our mold, and then we're going to sprinkle it with our crushed up candy canes and then let that sit and pop them out of the molds, and then we're done. So I'm going to bring you in close, show you how I use my little double boiler over here to melt my chocolate, and we're going to get started. Okay guys, here we go. I'm starting with my chocolate chips, my darker chocolate first. And I've just, like I told you, I have my water just simmering in the bottom of my pot. You only need about an inch or so of water. And it's going to heat up the bottom of my bowl and cause my chocolate to melt. You just want to make sure you're stirring frequently. You do not want your chocolate to burn at all or overheat. And it should only take a few minutes. It doesn't take very long to do this. It just took about 3 minutes or so to get to this point. Everything is almost all the way melted. And you're going to want to stir constantly once you get to this point. Okay, once your chocolate chips are completely melted, you're going to want to turn your heat off, or if you're using an electric stove, you want to remove it from the heat. Then I'm going to add about 2 drops of peppermint oil. If you are using peppermint extract, you're going to want about 1/2 teaspoon, but that's to taste, so you can go ahead and once you add it, taste it, see if you want more. But with the peppermint oil, 2 drops, 3 at the most is plenty. Okay, so now we're going to take you want about 1/4 inch of the chocolate in the bottom of your mold. So about a tablespoon or so you're going to want to put in there. And then I like to take a toothpick and make sure that it gets into all the nooks and crannies of the snowflake. Okay, for those of you who are not using the molds or the cookie cutters and you're just making bark to break up, you're going to take a parchment lined baking sheet and you're just going to pour your chocolate onto the baking sheet. And then just take your spatula and smooth it out so that it's about 1/4 inch thick. Okay, I'm going to transfer both of them to my freezer for 5 to 10 minutes until they're fully set, and then we'll start with the white chocolate. Okay, before we move on to our white chocolate layer, I just wanted to point out, when you crush your candy canes, and all I did was break up the candy canes, I put them in a Ziploc freezer bag, and then I just used a heavy-duty measuring cup to break them up. I just pounded them out. But you will notice that there are some small particles in there. We don't necessarily want all that dust on top, at least I don't. So I'm just using a little strainer, and I'm going to strain out some of that dust so that I have the bigger chunks, the prettier chunks to use on top. But what I am going to do is I'm going to mix in some of the dust into my white chocolate before we put it in our mold and spread it out. So just a little tip, if you don't want all of that, so we're going to mix that in with our white chocolate and put the prettier stuff on top. Okay, when you're ready, melt your white chocolate the same way. Okay guys, we are ready for our white layer. My white chocolate is all melted. But remember how I saved that peppermint dust? We're not going to put any peppermint oil in this one or peppermint extract. I'm just going to use the dust that was from my candy canes. You really don't need to add any more flavoring for the white unless you just really want a really impactful peppermint flavor. You should have plenty in the darker chocolate layer. So once you mix that in, then we're ready to do the same thing that we did with the darker chocolate, except this time we're going to go ahead and sprinkle some of our crushed candy canes on top. Okay, once I get them filled into the molds, I just take my cookie sheet and kind of tap it on the counter so that it will smooth out all of the white chocolate and that it'll be a smoother texture. You don't have to do that, but I think it looks prettier. Okay guys, how easy was that? Does not take very long at all. You just want to make sure that each layer is set up. You don't really want to freeze your chocolate if you're using the freezer to allow it to set. It only took about 5 minutes or so the first time, and then the second time I let it sit in the freezer for about 10 because I wanted to make sure that everything was completely set. But you could tell from watching me, the silicone molds are really great for getting the shaped ones out. And just look how pretty those are. So fun, so festive. And then the peppermint bark, it's just as pretty. The broken up one, you just have nice broken pieces, both layers of chocolate. Isn't that nice? It's just beautiful. I love the red and the green together. Perfect holiday treat, right? So whether you use the silicone molds or you just break it apart, either way is fantastic. Also, like I mentioned, the cookie cutters work really well. The one thing I did want to point out is I did have some, I didn't get my first layer of chocolate all the way to the edge on some of them, so I did have some that bled through, but it's still really pretty. But if you're really particular, you're going to want to make sure you really get that first layer into every nook and cranny of the mold if you're using them. Or if you're using a cookie cutter, it would be the same thing. So there you go. Really simple, a fun project to do. Even with little ones, it would be fun to do and really, really tasty. So I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks for coming along with me today, guys. If you have any comments or questions, leave them for me in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.